Okay, let's start. Yeah.
Well, hi, my name is Mariana Wan. I'm a student of bioinformatics at Utah Valley, and I'm from Murray, Utah. We welcome you to the Thematic section, Sustainable Development, Goal 6, Clean Water and Sanitation, and Goal 7, Affordable and Clean Energy. SDG 6, ensure availability and sustainability management of water sanitation for all, and SDG 7, ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. Today, we are moderating the panel, Ms. Kelly Honecker, Director of Principal Gifts and Water for People. As panelists, we have a privilege to have Dr. Robert Sowby, Professor of Civil Engineering at Brigham Young University, Ms. Carmen Valdez, Executive Director of Healthy Environment Alliance of Utah, and Dr. Lauren Brooks, Professor of Biology and Microbiology. As we will not have time for introductions, so please see the bios in the website under SDG 6 and 7. We will turn time to Ms. M. Bella. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanna. Very good. Yay. Perfect. Thank you. All right, so I'm good on the mic situation? No. I saw a nod and a shake, but I'm just going to keep going.
It is going into the stream, which
Okay.
is the most important part.
Okay. And level audio-wise, yes, no? Louder? This one? Yes? All right, all right. Well, thanks all for joining us today, and especially towards the end of the day. So definitely recognize that afternoon fatigue setting in. We had a great panel session before. This one was pretty lively, so hopefully we can keep that theme going. Honored to be here. Amazing panelists, really impressed and excited for what they have to share about water, sanitation, and clean energy. So as introduced, I work with Water for People. We're an international NGO relentlessly committed to ending the global water crisis. I could talk ad nauseum about it, but I want to maximize our time today and give opportunity to our panelists who are here to listen to. So I'm going to go ahead and pass off to Rob just to make some introductory remarks, share a little bit about himself so he can frame it around, why do these goals matter?
Okay, thank you, Kelly. I'm a professor of civil engineering at BYU, and a lot of what I teach and study there has to do with water and energy resources. So I'm thrilled that we are addressing in this thematic session both SDGs on clean water and affordable energy. So I want to make 2 points in my opening remarks. One, water and energy are two finite and interdependent resources. We can't have one without the other. We need energy to make clean water, to move water from its natural place in the environment, to clean it up, to get it to the right form and place for humans to use. Because while there is a lot of water on Earth, most of it is underground or dirty or salty or frozen or far away, or otherwise in places and forms and times that we can't use directly as humans. And so we put energy into it to transform it into something usable, to clean it up, to move it to the right place, and make it practical for human consumption. On the other side of what we call this water energy nexus, we need water to generate power, whether that's hydropower coming from dams or run-of-river hydro facilities, or thermoelectric and nuclear power that generate electricity from spinning turbines by boiling water. So we need both water and energy resources to do what we need to do. That's my first point. They are interdependent. Second, a lot of the sustainable development goals you can imagine, would be resolved if we have clean power and affordable energy to begin with. When we have clean water and affordable energy. When we have clean water, that enables so many other things to happen. The education, the food supply, the poverty, the other problems tend to go away when we have adequate supplies and infrastructure around water, and same with energy. When we have clean and affordable energy, it means that we can keep the lights on, we can have schools and buildings, that we have social systems that are more equitable for men and women working jobs. So a lot of these things ultimately go back to having the basic resources of communities to make them sustainable, which leads us back to water and power.
Thanks, Rob. I couldn't agree more. I'm a little bit biased around SDG 6, but I do agree that it really underscores everything. And yes, I love your point about the interconnectedness between the two. And of course, all the goals, right, are so overlapping, which again is always why it's exciting to bring everyone together and acknowledge that and talk through that and realize that you're not going to accomplish one if you don't do work in another as well. So thank you that. And Carmen, you want to speak a little?
Mic check. Yes? No? Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, Carmen Valdez. I am a policy associate at an executive level with the Healthy Environment Alliance of Utah, so a Utah-based nonprofit where we focus on clean air, clean and renewable energy, and radioactive and toxic threats, which are all very much connected. I actually started at HEAL as a grassroots organizer, so meeting with students, with individuals, and getting you to go yell at your legislators with me. Now I get paid to yell at legislators, which is really great, but that means that we need to continue expanding our public outreach because now I can no longer drag you with me, so we need to encourage you more. This is really important when it comes to clean energy and clean water because those are the people who are making those decisions. And when you're not in those rooms, those decisions are getting made with or without you. But if you're there and you make a statement, you provide public comment, which is your right, you have an opportunity to make changes for sustainable, equitable energy and water. So while I'm working with HEAL and when I'm not up at the Capitol during the 45 days, I actually live out of my truck with one solar panel, one battery, charge everything off of that, and take all my meetings out of San Juan County, Utah, which still doesn't have reliable access to energy and water for a lot of communities down there. And that's really problematic. And so when I'm down there, relying on energy is very important, but community resilience and making sure people have access to food, when I've seen that I can charge my phones during the day on a solar panel and not rely on it in the evening, means that I'm not as connected to these sources, but community members are looking out for each other. They're making sure each person has a light on so they can do their homework. So when I'm up in Salt Lake and every building has access to energy, that's fantastic. But that's not how it is even in our own state today. So when it comes to those types of things, for me, I want to make sure everyone has equitable access, that the rates aren't increasing because these are basic human rights at this point, right? These are basic human rights. And don't get me wrong, I'd also like a life where we didn't have to rely on electricity and, we enjoy camping, we enjoy disconnecting every once in a while, but we can make those changes as a community. And that takes your effort as well. The little changes we can make, turning off your lights, charging during the day, switching to solar panels, those are easier than buying an electric vehicle, right? Not everyone can afford that. But you can make smaller choices on where your energy is coming from and then demanding it from the policymakers, from the businesses that are making these decisions as well. And there's public opportunities in all of those, so I encourage you all to be part of it as well.
Thanks, Carmen. I feel like I would really love to watch you in action up on the hill. I appreciate that. And so true. We do have a bit of a water and energy crisis even here domestically, often overlooked, and my organization is predominantly focused overseas, and but here on our Native American reservations and other areas in Appalachia, there are many homes without reliable or sustainable access to water, to power, to sanitation. So it's not so far away. It is here. So thank you. And Lauren, please.
All right, so I feel like you all just stepped on what I was planning on saying. So I have lived in Utah for about 5 years now, or I guess 4.5. But before that, I was in the Central Valley in California, right in the heart of the almond farms, where there are currently drastic water shortages due to kind of not misuse, but probably not the most rational use of water to be allocated. And so I kind of saw that before coming here, but even before that, I grew up in Appalachia and actually have experienced a lack of clean water. So when I was in high school, our well broke, and that was that. I went about 6 months, I want to say, without any running water. We also had power outages on a regular basis. I was out in the actual woods, and when these things went out, we were some of the last priority to get these services turned back on. So like I definitely remember like going down the street to the like state park a couple of miles away and showering in the camping showers where the people were nice enough to help us out. And it was community. Like, our pump had broken, we had no options. And so I've lived with several different types of water shortages in my life and can definitely say that it is a local problem as well. And so I was inspired by kind of that upbringing in Appalachia, and I was passionate, so passionate about water quality that I couldn't do it professionally. I get a little fired up when I talk about certain water quality issues. So I focused instead on the field of microbial source tracking, which is a fancy word for figuring out where poop came from. And so that's what I kind of dedicated my master's degree, my PhD, and that's how I got here to UVU, where I'm now teaching biology and microbiology. So I still have this passion for the environment and providing safe and clean drinking water and sanitation, but I kind of went a little sciencey route because I get a little feisty when I start talking about especially the inequalities and the injustices with who doesn't have access to these human rights. So
I welcome the fiery. Let's do that at 4:30 on a Wednesday. Thanks. I'm going to ask a question to each of the panelists now, and then we'll have opportunity for all of you to ask questions as well. So I'm first going to ask this to Rob, and certainly coming to your very first statement about the connection between water and energy, I imagine that moving, pumping, and treating water takes a lot of energy. I don't just imagine, I know it does, actually. And so how can you tell us a little on how water supply could be more efficient?
Sure. In the United States, researchers estimate that water and wastewater services consume maybe 1% to 2% of national electricity consumption. That's not counting what happens on the customer side for like water heating, for example. That's just the public utility side. And while 1 or 2% sounds very small, we use a lot of energy in America, and so it's actually, by volume, it's quite large. And in developing countries, that slice of the pie is even bigger because they have their pie is smaller overall, and that piece for water and wastewater is usually one of the most necessary things, and so it takes up a bigger percentage of the overall energy profile. And so it can be quite significant, especially on an international scale. So yes, water and wastewater is big business for energy, and we have to find ways to bring that footprint down. In the past, it hadn't got the attention that it does now because energy was historically cheap and abundant, same as water was. But now with a changing climate and growing population and stricter standards for water quality, the energy requirement, the energy intensity of a gallon of water just keeps going up. We have to put more and more energy into these systems to get the same amount of water out. So it's hard to get ahead that way. But things we can do are, first of all, just characterize what kind of energy use is going into a water system. I'm surprised even within the United States, if I go to a water utility, and I've done this for like the last 10 years, and I ask them, well, how much energy do you use to supply water? And a lot of them can't tell me. They know how much water they use because that's part of their business, but they can't point to a figure on the energy. They say, oh, well, so-and-so in the accounting department, she pays the bill, and we don't see it as water operators. We just flip the switch, we pull the lever, and water comes out. We don't see the effects of our decisions. And so I think helping water utilities understand that they have an influence on their own energy footprints, and tracking that performance is one thing they can do. And when they do that, they usually realize, and I've coached them through these kind of processes, they realize that they have options, that they're usually not operating the most energy efficient way. They have different paths that they can deliver water on, different ways they can operate their water treatment plant, their pump station, to take advantage of either energy pricing or low intensity water, or certain kinds of equipment that they're underutilizing at certain times of the year or certain times of day to bring the overall energy footprint down. Just the education and awareness of these technical opportunities is great. And besides that, the teamwork that comes together and the insight these people gain when they're looking at their water systems through the lens of energy management, there's all kinds of cool stuff that comes out. They're like, oh, I never thought about that, because they'd been taught to address it from maybe from a public health perspective or from a hydraulics perspective, from an engineering perspective, but not from this kind of energy or sustainability or community perspective. And that adds a lot to the way that they operate the system.
Thank you. I think your comment about a lack of awareness by the utility on their energy footprint, it's probably relatable to almost all of us, right? I think you said we just flip a switch and it happens, and that's probably a part of all of our everyday. So I think that awareness piece is really significant, and to just know, right, to kind of follow that path. I flip the switch. What are all the things that are happening there? So thank you. I'm going to go to Carmen now. Carmen, achieving SDG 6 and SDG 7 will require involvement and participation across all levels. I think public, private, civil sector, individuals, coalitions. How can we ensure there's representation from all communities, and that we will truly hear all the voices when it comes to fixing this?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this question a lot, and the one thing that I've had to at least learn in this time of transition, right? We're very much in a time of transition. We can move forward with status quo, we can move forward with sustainable measures, we can make changes, we can make those steps today to transition, but it takes a lot of time, right? Not everyone can go out and transform their house into an eco-pod. Not everyone can go buy an electric vehicle. We can't build a sustainable bus system overnight. So it takes a lot of time, and I think we lose faith in those systems because they have been exploiting it. So to ensure those voices are being heard is, one, that the meetings are being held and that you're holding them accountable. And this isn't just your elected officials. This is all your businesses, all your communities, your investments, where you're putting your money, what you're spending your money on, different things like that. But it takes a community transition, and it takes forgiveness, like we all make mistakes. We're going to use more energy one day over the next. But if you move forward with intention of, I want to lower my energy footprint, my water usage, you start making those steps. But to ensure that all the voices are there, you have to invite people. Invite whoever. You never know who might want to be in attendance of this conference, of one of our public meetings. And one thing that I've really enjoyed, at least of the last year, is, so first off, the Capitol and all your legislators are your elected officials. Their job is to listen to you, no matter how loud, annoying you may be. That's their job. But they can't be experts in everything, so they have to hear from you. But when they're not there, then it leads to opportunities where people are missing. That's where we're at right now. But now we have Zoom, right? We have the internet and everything's streamed live. If you guys have not checked out le.utah.gov, you can watch every single committee hearing live and make public comments. You can submit emails. You can send an email every single day to your legislators. But if you're not encouraging everyone to make those emails, to send those text messages, and it's scary, then the same people making those decisions are still making those decisions. And we have some great elected officials who stand up and make comments all the time when elected officials are making comments towards the public. But they're by themselves up there too, right? So you need to be up there. You need to be willing to listen to those committee hearings or make a public statement. And it takes 3 minutes of your time. It's 3 minutes, you're timed, you give your story, and groups like HEAL, and I'm sure other organizations and our teachers are wanting you to learn your story, why you care about these issues, and then go tell your legislators so that they can make a decision. Because otherwise they're just listening to who else is in that room, right? But it does take a lot of time. And keeping small committees is never good. So we actually had an experience this legislative session to create the Grid Resilience Committee of Utah. Fantastic. That's what we need, right? Grid resilience and energy. The committee members were less than 10. Less than 10. Not a tribal member, not a renewable energy agency, not a sustainable group, not a nonprofit group was allowed on that Grid Resilience Energy Committee. But they have public comment periods. They host public meetings. So we make sure we're there and inviting everyone there and thinking about who may need to be in attendance of this meeting and finding a way for them to join. Hey, down in San Juan County, here's a link, join this meeting. 3 minutes. It's really important. And oftentimes they have to listen because we're holding them accountable. Why not, right? That's what they're there for. So that's the important part of politics. I am going to sideline really quick when it comes to businesses. And I think we are in a point where we're encouraging our businesses, and it's becoming a fad, right, to be sustainable, green, have eco-friendly packaging, but hold them accountable, make it real. If you don't enjoy what you're seeing shopping, change your shopping habits. Buy sustainable, buy renewable, thrift, why not? All these outfits it's available. But it does take time and patience and understanding that everyone is making these transitions at the same time. So, thanks.
Thank you, Carmen. It does take time, and I think, unfortunately, it often seems that there's a certain group of people who have the luxury of that time to put into these things, and then those are the voices that we hear. So, it can feel very cyclical, and I think then, if we are in a position of just, innate privilege, it is our responsibility to use that, right, and to use it well and for others. Lauren, thank you. Thanks for being so patient. The U.S. is not immune to impacts of climate change, and many areas of the world are feeling it on a near daily basis. Our access to drinking water and the quality of our water is under threat. What's the role that you see for water resources management and water quality in achieving SDG 6?
So I think that without management, and that could be a very broad term, that could be regulatory, that could be incentivizing, there's a lot that goes into water resources management. But I think that we've seen that without comprehensive management, we aren't going to meet our goals. It is unfortunately a tragedy of the commons that this is a shared resource and we can all take some of it, but if we don't leave some behind, we will run out in the entire ecosystem of whatever body of water. While I'm saying this, I'm thinking about the Colorado River, which is very, very dry at the moment. And so proper management is absolutely key to meeting the SDG 6. And I say proper management because especially in the West, in the United States, we have like paper water rights where certain entities, people, states are allocated certain amounts of water, and those paper rights do not match what is currently in the river. And so legally you might be able to take more than there actually is in the water or in the river. And so that's a huge issue, and I do not consider that water resource management. That is not actually managing the water that we have. That is not being realistic. That is not taking a comprehensive view of things. And so I really think that, just like you were saying, involving multiple people, like, yes, we need the scientists to generate the data to say this is what you can take, this is what the projections are showing, but we also need the people there on the ground to be like, here are the obstacles we are facing to implementing these things. Being from West Virginia, I've seen this happen where outsiders come in and tell you what to do, and we don't like it. And so no one would ask us what we needed, what we wanted, and I think we need to be very aware that management has to involve the local people as well. And it has to involve everyone at that table. It cannot just be scientists. I would love it if everything worked perfectly based on the science and the models and the data. That's not the real world. So water management has to involve the communities as well as the science, as well as the politicians and the engineers, and everyone needs to have a say in actually shaping a comprehensive water plan for any body of water. All that said, what we see a lot of the times, even when you get a really good plan, is no follow through. So there has to be assessment of the plan. There has to be reiterations. There has to be adjustments. And so very rarely we see that you get this comprehensive plan, and a lot of times nobody follows through with it. It might be beautiful, spend years designing it, but if there's no assessment and no adjustments involving all of those same people that helped make the plan, it's going to fail. And I think that that's really what we're seeing, especially like in the West, is a failure of planning and assessment and reevaluation. This kind of attitude of, we established this in the early 1900s and we are sticking to it, no matter what, it's not gonna work. So if we are going to ensure sustainable and, or access to clean and safe water and hygiene and sanitation, we are going to have to work on all of these things. And this is true for the United States as well as globally. And so we, as the United States, we have a lot of resources, and we could be doing a lot better to implement, communicate, assess, reevaluate, and actually manage our water bodies in a sustainable way.
Thank you. I kind of feel like I want to clap after that one. I know. Yeah, there's so many good nuggets in that. Lots of ways I feel like I want to just kind of jump in. But yes, what I heard was community-driven solutions. Because end of the day, who's left with whatever has been created? It's the community. If they're not bought in, if they're not equipped to own what, they're not going to keep up whatever was put in place. So absolutely, I heard, assessments, right? Monitoring, evaluation, be ready to change and to pivot. And then, institutions that were essentially set up hundreds upon hundreds of years ago, and some reason thinking they're still going to work. And I think we just have to accept that sometimes you have to reshape the institution itself. And I think you all are the ones to do it. I love it. So one more question that I will share, put out to all of you, and then we'll let the audience ask some as well. What is one thing we could change today, or we could implement today, and actually have a legitimate impact in moving the needle towards SDG 6 or SDG 7? Alternatively, a kind of little spin on that, even is what is working? Like, do you have something you've seen, something that excited you? Trying to bring some positivity into this here. So we'll, Lauren, do you want to go? Well, we can work down and start with you this time. Are you ready?
I think, without repeating what I just said, because all of the things I just said are one thing we could do, but I'm going to go a completely different direction now and talk about considering all of these resources, water, energy, as an ecosystem and an actual collection of multiple different species and life, as well as the abiotic non-living factors. And I say this because it's absolutely essential to look at the big picture. So we want clean drinking water. Well, where is the water coming from? What are the ecological or the meteorological patterns that are promoting whether or not we are receiving water? In addition, what ecosystem services are available? So like, are there wetlands that can help filter that? Or if there's nothing that can help filter that water, do we need to build more things? And so I think a lot of the time we get so focused on one or two aspects of this that we forget that there's actually this whole ecosystem there. And so I, as a microbiologist, even think that we need to consider the microbes and what they're doing and the actions in the soils. There's great promise of carbon capture and sequestration based on microbial activity in soils. And having healthy soils can actually help fight climate change. Nobody wants to protect the microbes, but they're really important. So protect the microbes. But yeah, so considering all of the ecosystem. I need that, yes. Considering all of the ecosystem is absolutely vital, and understanding, I'm biased, I'm a scientist, and I'm like, yes, more money so we can understand these processes, especially the microbes, because they're really, really important. But then once you have more understanding and you're recognizing the way these things are interacting with each other, I think it could change the way we approach these problems and these sustainable development goals.
Protect the microbes just doesn't have the same ring as save the whales or something. But incidentally, speaking of whales, another energy guru, Michael Weber, often says that coal saved the forests and oil saved the whales. Because we started burning coal instead of trees to get our energy, and then we started burning oil instead of whale blubber. So there we go, just as an anecdote. Yeah. Now, as far as what's working, just from my experience in Utah this year, what we've seen with the ongoing drought, and this has more to do with water quantity than quality, but I think some of the same lessons still apply, is that we saw that people were very willing to give up on their or at least set aside their landscape water needs for a time, or at least cut back, let their lawns go dormant. There were several cities and clients that I work with that asked their water users to do that, just because they were being proactive, or they were faced blatantly with a water shortage and said, we will not be able to serve your irrigation needs at full capacity this year. And the customers said, okay, we understand the decision we're facing here, we understand the crisis, and we are willing to participate and cooperate and do our part to cut back on our water use for the benefit of not just our own home or business, but for the benefit of the entire community and the water resource that we share. And seeing that not just from one or two communities, but from several around the state, I'm encouraged that there's a movement away from, this is my water right and I'm going to use it whether there's water in the river or not, toward a mentality of, this is a shared resource that we need to protect in terms of quantity as well as quality, to make sure that it is clean and safe. And I think we're seeing that in a movement here in the state of Utah, across the United States, and hopefully throughout the world.
Awesome. Well, even though I've been ranting about government, I'm also going to lean back towards probably more traditional or hippie or sustainable methods. One thing that I've really been working hard with HEAL is not only working with our energy producers and developers, but also finding ways to lower your energy footprint, your consumption, making choices. So instead of turning up your AC units, why not plant more trees to shade your yard, to shade your house, to help ultimately cool it down, create ambient temperature decreases. We've seen redlining and heat islands all throughout our cities. But those are choices that you get to make too. But also at the same time, really shifting your choices. I know it takes a long time. You may not have the funds to make it, but being able to use a reusable water bottle, or if you work in a large corporation or maybe a large university, not leaving the lights on all day, every day. Right? Shifting those usage, recognizing when you might be able to save or conserve energy, or open up those large buildings. And don't get me wrong, I've worked for a large law firm downtown, like lots of energy usage there. But I went around and I would turn off every single attorney's computer at the end of the day, because how much material was left running. So there's shifts that we can make in our energy consumption as well as our water consumption. But it's also when we do the individual actions, and I love hearing that people are taking it and that you've seen credible data, right? But we also need to think about what I've been doing is making sure that our cities and our counties, with all of the lawn space that exists, and recognizing maybe there could be some community gardens and some community orchards and more trees instead of lawns that require water consumption. And also encouraging all of you, I know you're all so tired and we're all stressed and no one has time, but to volunteer or pick up some trash in your neighborhood, in your parking lot. Every single drain that you see goes right to the Jordan River, which goes right to the Great Salt Lake. Every single drain. So any drains that you can pick up some trash, that helps make sure that trash isn't ending up in our water sources and thus ultimately contaminating. But those cleanups we've seen, and I work with the Jordan River Commission, river otters are returning to the Jordan River because people are cleaning up and they're cleaning up what's happening. So small choices, I know it's a little hippie, but like it adds up because we've seen how quickly it added up in the last 40 years. So save the otters, save the biomes, and also I just want to talk about biocryptic crust out in the desert and the real changes that are like, you recognize the biomes and the microorganisms. They're so cool. So continue doing research, y'all, and then find people like me so we can take it to the Capitol.
Thank you. Thank you. Man, biocryptic crust. I didn't see us going there, I have to say. But I like it. Okay. All right. Thank you. And yeah, and who can argue with otters, right? That's, that's always a plus. I appreciate your thoughts, and now we do have a good 15 minutes for any questions from out in the audience. Now, should they be going to the microphone, or you want me to run it over?
60% chance.
Ooh, I mean, that's decent. I'd buy that lotto ticket. Okay.
Let me try. If it doesn't work, then just repeat the question.
Okay. Got it. So we've got.
Hi, my name is Lonnie Ward from Choice Humanitarian. I love what you said about community-focused projects. What are some good ideas to get community members more involved? It's been mentioned everybody's busy with their lives. How do we help people in communities get involved? How can we expand that community from a small geographic area to larger geographic areas?
Yeah, at this part, you're on your own. You all just
Yeah.
fight over the questions. No.
That's a great question, because that's what I did as a grassroots organizer, right? It's very much grassroots. So first off, I think it would be continuing to have things like this and inviting people who might be interested, as well as sharing information. And as much as I'm, someone who lives out in the desert and doesn't hang out with a lot of people, creating community events are really impactful. And so hosting cleanups, hosting tree plantings, building a community garden, helping someone, or fundraising of some sort. But I think what we've both noticed is going into your community is the first and most important part. And I do that a lot as a policy associate. And I'll ask West Jordan City sustainability members, what do you want? What do you want in your city? And it turns out, yeah, they would like a community garden because they don't know where else they can plant that in West Jordan City at this point. So now we find Wasatch Community Gardens who builds those community gardens, and we can find donations for seeds, and we work with seed banks. And so it takes wanting change, and I think being part of the community at the same time and creating those events, which is hard, but finding nonprofits to help host that. And I just want to say I have a lot of faith in our youth. There are a lot of events, protests, cleanups. We've had cleanups where 100 people have shown up to help clean up the river. So people are ready to show up, I think. It's just creating the opportunities. So.
We're down to one, so we're just gonna share.
Can I have one? All right. So I was just going to add to that because I think all of that was perfect. But I also think just doing it is also really powerful. When I was in college, I was really cool, and I used to walk around and pick up trash every weekend. And people made fun of me, but then they started hanging out with me. And then it would be like a thing to go get some coffee and go pick up some trash. And it was never an organized thing, but it was a thing that I did. And so I've had this happen. I'll be walking around. I live near Liberty Park in Salt Lake, and I pick up a piece of trash. And I've had a kid be like, "What are you doing? That's not your trash." And I'm like, "I know, but it was trash." So I pick it up and I put it in the trash can. And this kid just stared at me like, what in the world? So in my mind, this kid will now always pick up trash. And so even if it's not something formal, just being the example and showing people like, yeah, this stuff needs to be done. I'm a human in this community and I can do it. And then if it does turn into something bigger, then that's awesome.
Yeah, power and example. There was a cue, it looks like, was was happening. So, yeah, I think that one is working. You're welcome to.
Yeah, that's working. Maybe. Okay, there we go. Okay, and this is just coming from a poor college student, but I just had a quick question. Well, first of all, I just want to say there was a comment about awareness and energy shortages and stuff like that. And I really resonated with that. I lived for 2 years over in Ghana, West Africa, and they've got a serious energy crisis going on there. And there were time periods where we didn't have power for 24 hours, then it would be on for 12 hours, and then off again for 24 hours. You know, water's not flowing for a week. We had to bathe with plastic water sachets, and so I get that. And so when I came home from my 2 years in Ghana, I was very much aware of, you know, for example, I used to leave the faucet on as I brushed my teeth. Super cringe-worthy right there. But then after that experience, it took that experience for me to be like, hey, no, like there's people that I love in Ghana that don't have water right now. So whatever difference that makes. So anyways, I get that. But the question I had is, you're talking about what was your name again? I'm sorry. Carmen, I'm so sorry. The businesses, you know, choosing where we put our money into businesses that are, you know, being more, you know, energy efficient and more eco-friendly. A lot of times, you know, I've seen, and maybe this is a false assumption, but a lot of those businesses are totally using that to their advantage, and they're hiking up the prices. And I'm all about renewable energy and, you know, clean foods and, you know, sustainable resources, but a lot of times that gets expensive for young college students. So what's the solution to that? Because I would love to drive a Tesla. I'm a mechanical engineering major. I think those things are so awesome, right? I love technology like that, but it's so expensive. So what's the solution to that?
My colleagues. But I appreciate your reflection, and I think it's a little what I was touching on earlier, is that it can be inaccessible. Living a sustainable lifestyle or making choices to live that way, it is a luxury because it does often come at a cost. And so I think you're asking, you know, how do we make that more accessible when we know we need more people to make those positive choices? Yeah, yep.
I can say a few things. I don't want to, am I talking too much? So as a recently poor, well, not that recently. I was going to say poor college student, but then I was a poor grad student and then a poor postdoc. So I've been there, and trying to live sustainably is incredibly hard. And I think so much of it for me comes down to what am I willing and able to do? So like, I don't like driving, even if I had a Tesla. You can't get me in the car, I just hate it. So taking a bike, walking, riding the front runner. I ride the front runner to work every day. That's cost effective and good for the environment. Shopping at thrift stores. All right, I have to say, I don't love the ones in Utah. They're not great, but when I lived in Oregon, oh my gosh, they were amazing. And so like encouraging, and like if there is more of an interest, I know like Uptown Cheapskate is like doing some stuff. I see these like reuse stores. That place is a little too trendy for me, so I don't shop there. But yeah, so like finding those options and what you can do, what you can afford. You don't have to buy the new things. A lot of it's just about minimizing what you do buy. So maybe you eat a little bit less meat or something like that, if that's something that you are willing to do. Because I don't want to be like, you have to go be a vegan right now and only take the train. That might not be compatible with your life, and that's you. For me, I don't like eating meat, so being a vegetarian was super easy. I love eating cheese. I'm not a vegan. So finding those sacrifices in a way that it doesn't feel like you're sacrificing, I think is what I'm trying to say. And in the meantime, some of these things, like buying a Tesla, buying like an energy efficient, I need a new fridge right now. I would love to buy a really nice fridge. I'm not going to, because they're really expensive. And so making those trade-offs, I might buy a used fridge, that's nice, that I can afford, and then that would have like very little footprint. So just mostly reuse, and then cutting things out where you feel like that's something you can do.
I have 2 points. One, there's going to be a presentation tomorrow from BYU professor Mike Bown, B-O-W-N, who has studied the corporate sustainability practices of 100 Fortune 500 companies plus some European ones to see if what they say about their sustainability practices is accurate or if it's just baloney. So that may be something interesting about, the business practices. Second, much to echo what Lauren said, your choices about sustainability are less about economics and more about your personal conviction. And that's really what it comes down to. Are my choices for A, B, C, or D consistent with my values? And if you're okay with that, that's really all that matters.
And I do have one more to add. Again, being the example there, and you guys are doing it here, and I was excited to see the really, really free market ideas. So I do it with women usually, but dudes should do this too, where you do clothing exchanges, right? You swap clothes with people who share the same size and style you have. I have found many pieces hanging out with my friends making trade-offs, or finding a used vehicle, or energy efficient, or not energy efficient fridge, but a new fridge, and reusing and kind of linking to, what our grandparents said of like, use things until they die. You use them, fix them up. And what's really cool is continue being innovative. So one thing that I've seen and that I've been working on, and it's so cool, a mechanic actually reached out to me, a diesel mechanic, who said, hey, did you know that you can, continue working on your vehicle, upgrade your emission standards, and produce less emissions? Mind blown. I reduced my emissions and my NOx emissions with one tune-up by 25%, and I didn't need to buy an electric vehicle because I can't afford that either. So what you do have, try to make it sustainable. The last thing, don't hold it on yourself or anyone else, because it's hard to be sustainable. If you do need to go to the dollar store to buy what you can, you should. That stuff's coming from the same markets. Why not? I found gluten-free pasta at the dollar store now. If you need to, that's what you can do. But also, again, poor college student, grad student, things like that, your intentions, right? As you move forward, as you step forward, you don't need to buy something brand new all the time. Use your clothing until they rot. Add stitches if you need to. So there's options, and it's hard right now, but if that's what you see for your future, your steps are gonna be there, so. And then again, trade clothes with friends, trade items, art, books, everything. Trade with your friends.
Thank you. I know we've got several other questions and limited time, so let's try to get through them. Thanks.
Water and energy are two of the really big topics in sustainability right now, and it's something that we're all talking about and hearing a lot about. So as we're engaged in these discussions, are there any common misconceptions that you'd like to clarify to make sure that we're going out with the best info possible from this?
Yeah, I'll pick up the microphone here. Everyone seems to think that desalinating seawater is going to be humanity's salvation. It's a great idea if you can power it with clean energy. It's incredibly energy intensive, which is why it's more common in the Middle East. But it's only a good deal if you can make desalinated water with emissions-free energy, and also take care of the brine and the stuff that goes with it. So it's great technology. I love it, but probably not going to be the panacea that everybody thinks it is.
While we're hovering on this, I think that wastewater reclamation and reuse is amazing. So instead of pumping it from the Pacific Ocean, we could very, very, very well clean our sewage and then reuse it. So I know it seems gross, but anytime you have wastewater treatment plants dumping effluent into a river, the town down the river is using that water again. So let's just acknowledge that as a source of water. So just wanted to add that. So.
Thanks. I'll throw a quick one on as well. Working predominantly in what, for better or worse, the term I think is still being used as developing countries. I think a misconception is that people won't pay for their water or they can't pay for their water. And it's not a flat out, like there's obviously extreme poverty without question. But when you're able to demonstrate reliable, sustainable access to quality water, people understand that as a service and are willing to pay. Now that varies, and communities find ways to make sure that they cover those who truly cannot. But I think that's a misconception, is that, water has to be free in places of extreme poverty.
Hey, I just wanted to say that UVU is really great because we have a sustainability committee, which is amazing. But what I really need to figure out is how to, a lot of waterways comes from like industrialization, right? Like it's ridiculous. So is there any way to get, I know we can talk, like be involved with our political representatives, but like there has to be a way to get like a law passed and like make them stop watering on their lawn. Like it just is like, why is that such a weird thing to ask? Do you guys know, like what's like the holdup? How is there not a law that just says, no, you can only water twice a week. Sorry, UVU, you just have to suck it up. Like, you know what I mean? It's just crazy. Like, why do you think that is? That there's just no law in place for that? Like, it seems crazy. Thank you, guys.
It's true, though.
It is.
Anyone want
Do you
to?
know why?
I will just say it's because they haven't had, accountability, right? It hasn't been in the forefront. So now we can make those changes. We can look on the past, shame on you, but also let's move forward in the future. Let's keep moving forward. Let's make those changes. Let's make that law. If you contact your elected official, they could run that law. They are actually starting bills right now. So maybe that should be one coming from UVU.
And it is up to local jurisdictions for the most part in the water utilities, and they can and have imposed restrictions like that. It's unfortunate that people want either one extreme or the other, kill all the grass, no green space here. But those spaces are important for our communities, so we want green spaces to beautify our neighborhoods and have places to recreate. It's finding that balance that's tricky. So that's all I'll say about that.
I don't know if I'm supposed to comment on that exactly quarter after, but we're here, so let's go.
I'm glad. I was wondering where you guys see nuclear energy fitting into the wider landscape of sustainability, environmentalism, and resource use.
I don't know if that got fully caught by everyone, so let me say.
Sorry.
No, that's okay, right? It was a little quiet. Where do we see nuclear energy
Yes, ma'am.
fitting in? Okay. Thanks.
I guess I should have said this, but I do focus on nuclear policy and toxic hazard policy. So when it comes to nuclear policy, and we've been working on this because everyone's changing, things are changing, we recognize what may already exist as nuclear power plants can help with the transition, but bringing on new power plants is really, really risky because, again, of resources. And water is one of them, but claiming it's carbon-free at the production of energy before you as a user get it is great. That front end, which is what I work on down in San Juan County of uranium mining and milling and sourcing and toxic chemicals, is horrendous. That does not go away. We've worked with advocates from Japan where they're trying to send the waste from Fukushima to White Mesa, San Juan County. So increasing nuclear power in the country will increase that amount of waste, and that waste does not go away. And will ultimately end up in the West Desert, which is just outside of Tooele, Utah, or in Tooele, which has happened, or is actually on trains headed straight through Salt Lake City every day. So HEAL does not support any new nuclear energy at this time. We have also seen there are other alternatives, and there can be the finances put into that. But we also see that these nuclear power plants are really expensive and ultimately end up, the communities who are trying to source it from there are left with really crazy bills and not getting energy sourced. So I recognize it, I see it, we all do, and it's really exciting to see it, and it's cool. But at the same time, bringing on new nuclear energy will literally revamp the uranium waste industry, and that leaves everyone here at risk for it, so.
I got nothing. Whenever asked about nuclear, I just get like really, I'm like, So, yeah, microbes. Let's talk about that.
All right. Well, thanks for staying with us to the bitter end. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much to the panelists. It was very fun. So, thanks all.